This is Talk Time. Borno State was in the news again as more than 100 people were killed in 3 communities, with one particular village, Dalori, practically razed to the ground. Eyewitnesses say the attackers were dressed in military uniform and used a combination of arson and gunshots. This brings to question the security of Nigerians in the northeast. Well, joining me in the studio is a native of Borno State and former presidential aspirant, Galtima Liman. Candidate.
Yes, not an aspirant.
Not an aspirant. Yeah. Okay, it's good to know that. Welcome.
Thank you.
You must feel bad to see this continuous onslaught by the Boko Haram on your state and the Northeast in general.
Not your state, citizens of the country. It affects you also.
Absolutely.
And it's humanity, you know.
Yes. Now, when the president says the Boko Haram is trying to embarrass him, is an embarrassment to his government, the imagery one gets is a man who's just, raising his hands in the air, feeling almost helpless.
It's not about being helpless, you know. We used to own a farm in Dalori, and as kids, in those days, if you remember this Osmobile, we used to drive to Dalori farms with my mom. She's late now. It's a very serene community, and it has not changed substantially. The same, it's about 14 kilometers, very close to Maiduguri, and very close to the University of Maiduguri. You know, so, and like you rightly said, it's not the first time that you have all this kind of horrendous attacks, you know, in communities. Baga, you remember?
Yes, Baga, indeed.
Gajiganna, Kukawa, Krenoa, even Mubi, then Kano. So it's not really peculiar to Borno State. You saw the Buniyadi, the Buniyadi massacre of the federal government college boys. I went to also a federal government college. We were pioneers in the federal government college post the Civil War in 1972-73 in Enugu. So Jos, now there's a pattern there. It's not about President Buhari, like you're saying, raising his arms and saying, look, I don't seem to have a clue. It's not like that. The reality is that initially, like Jonathan Goodluck in his own earlier days, thought it was a localized issue. Suddenly, after thorough briefing by his security advisor, the late Azazi, Lieutenant General Azazi, he suddenly realized that it was more than that, and had to take a trip to Holland. I mean, to Holland at that material time, Paris. He said, look, your neighbors that have military pact with you seem to be, you know, encroaching into my territorial boundary, the national sovereignty of Nigeria, and annexing places under the pretext of Boko Haram, and even hoisting flags and all that kind of. So what is going on? Now, when His Excellency, the current President Muhammadu Buhari came, he also took, if you remember,
took a trip to
Holland.
Yes.
And he also took a trip to Idris Dabi. And said, look, there are some Chadians I'm seeing here within this enclave. I mean, the dead bodies will reveal to you who and who are wearing what military uniforms and all that kind of thing. And eventually he also visited Paul Biya of Cameroon. He said, what is going on? You know, your soldiers are encroaching into my territory and all that kind of thing. And so thereafter, there seemed to have been agreement that there was going to be a joint military task force that involving the United Nations and all that kind of thing. So it appears like something big is going on there that is not known to a lot of Nigerians.
What is this likely to be? If I'm reading between the lines of what you're saying, there's more to this than meets the eye. Is there an attempt to take part of Nigeria's territory? Is that what is going on here?
It's not an attempt. The insurgents initially, they call
influenced by other forces that we don't know about.
No, the insurgents had come out and said, look, your insurgency is that, look, we don't want your country. We want our own country. And who are the ones that want the country? And you had all sort of interesting actors. You have one Shekau who had all the sophisticated armored personnel carriers behind him with satellite monitors. You had also Chibok girls being abducted, and they're like the unidentified flying objects. They have not been seen anywhere. And still the impunity with which to go back to Chibok and attack it last week, in spite of all these other things. So are these young Yusufiya sects that are doing this, like you rightly said, or there are some kind of hidden hands? Is it the voice of Jacob and hand of Esau? What is going on there? Absolutely important for people to know.
I recall speaking with a northerner, a number of them, you know, friends of mine, and they insist that, look, it is not Nigerians carrying out this terror against...
There are Nigerians, there is no doubt about
their
it.
Own people.
There are Nigerians, there's no doubt about it. There are even local people from my own tribe, the Kanuri people and all that, also involved in it. There are Fulanis involved, there are the Igbos also involved and all that kind of a thing. So it's, there are Christians involved, there are Muslims involved. So the whole thing defies identification. Now, for students of strategy, the thing you want to begin to see, what is that kind of pattern? What is going on? Is it really an ideological issue? If it is so, why should churches be bombed and mosques
be bombed?
Now, if it is also a tribal issue, like you said, native of Borno State, I don't think they use the word native again after the colonial a citizen of Nigeria, you could have said. You know, you also have all sort of natives and non-natives and Sahelians, even Arabs. And people begin to say, oh, look, it's linked to the Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb. And later on they came back and said, no, we're not Al-Qaeda. Shekau had disappeared. Nobody sees him again, even though there was a bounty of $7 billion by the USA. And then later on it transforms into an Islamic state with a link in the Sahel or something. Then Jonathan Goodluck, the former president, comes back and says, look, it's Al-Qaeda in West Africa. Barack Obama says, no, you got it wrong. That's not like Al-Qaeda in West Africa. So there are a lot of good things going on the one side, people trying to fathom it, presidents like Buhari trying to say, we're going to end it. And the criminals are saying that, look, with impunity, we're going to embarrass you. So who are these guys that are very powerful, that continuously mutate? You know, they come, operate for about 4 hours. The military headquarters in Maiduguri is about 30 minutes drive.
Not too far away, and there's no intervention of any kind from them.
No intervention of any kind.
Now, all of this has happened, especially with the renewed onslaught in Daloria and the rest of them, at a time when this president, you know, has told us repeatedly that the Boko Haram have technically, or is the word tactically, been defeated. So is it that this government has underrated or underestimated the extent of, you know, firepower that these people have?
You see, the most important thing, the definition of defeat. There are some people that are benefiting from the anarchy. There are people that are benefiting from anarchy. You could see the Suki Gate that is going on.
Yes.
I mean, billions of US dollars to buy ammunition, and nobody was buying ammunition. So do you want a country that is united, that is stable, to check what is going on? Some people don't want a united Nigeria. Or could be one of them, the people creating all that. And most of the boys that are being used, in security parlance, they call them cannon fodder. They're clearly clueless as to what they're doing. They could be indoctrinated into believing they're doing Islam. And you have one criminal who will come back and tell them to recite the Holy Quran and that this one is wrong. A man wearing a cap is a Muslim. The one not wearing a cap is not a Muslim, so you can attack him. And at the end of the day, after he has attacked them, when he turns back, he is shot. Like Lai Mohammed, the Honorable Minister of Information, had rightly said, look, a lot of gullible media houses just report suicide bomber. 8-year girl, does she even know what an ideology is? He said, look, there are 3 people that are involved. An innocent girl that is trapped with a bomb that could be a BlackBerry. With a criminal that will tell her to go to where there's crowd and they can detonate it. And another one that can, you know, the big guy who is at the background funding it. So whose fault? It's the nation's fault.
That's a question. Is that the missing link in this war, you know, so-called war against terror, where we have not been able to maybe be more proactive in ensuring that these people, these vulnerable people, like the young girl, the 8-year-old girl, for example, I mean, the Chibok girls have been missing for more than a year now, and we still have not been able to say, look, there is actually a link between those Chibok girls missing and the female suicide bombers, for example?
It's not a suicide bomber. When you say suicide bomber, it's an ideologue. I believe in a very strong ideology, and nobody seems to understand me. And the guys are laughing at me. And I said to them, I'm going to meet you. I pretend like I am them. I wear the bomb and I detonate myself because I have a belief in ideology. That's a suicide bomber. A young girl, what ideology does she have? I don't know whether you can remember when you were 13 years old, what kind of philosophy that was.
Absolutely not.
It was, I think, after when I finished my university, 82, I think it was about 35 years ago or something like that. I started to even understand what religion was all about. You understand what I mean? So even after graduating in the university, I don't even know what they were doing in churches and mosques and all that kind of a thing. Sometimes you laugh, they say you laugh too much. Sometimes you cry, they say you're crying too much. Sometimes you do this. So what is this religion?